This is part 3 of 3, the last few minutes of the first lecture in History 322U, Modern East Asia at Portland State University. So let's look now at slide 16. It says from traditional to modern. Those are in quotation marks because a lot of people like to argue with the terms, but they're easy to use, and you'll have plenty of back and forth about that sort of thing in the readings. But to characterize the system before 1800 and into the first part of the 19th century in East Asia, whether it's the north or the south, the system was a China-centric one. It wasn't really an international system the way we're used to thinking about it today, because as Westad says early in his book, people from outside of the region who were encountered by Chinese would have been thought of as some divergent other subjects of the emperor. The idea of a nation was not really the same back then as it is today. The way that China kept control of its periphery, and that's the periphery of its empire, not the periphery of its country per se, was through the so-called tribute system, where kingdoms on the periphery of China's area of influence paid symbolic tribute by giving gifts to the emperor, and they were given gifts in return. This has sometimes been characterized as a form of trade, and it did develop that way in some places, particularly between Vietnam and China, where the tribute system began to account for a lot of the trade back and forth. But it was really something that was centered on Chinese control over its periphery, not in a direct way, but in a way that is a little bit similar to the types of control exerted today by the United States over some countries of the world by in essence giving endorsement to the local regime and assistance as necessary to enhance its security. That's a very simplistic way of looking at it, but there are some parallels that I think are often ignored in the way when people write about these things. Westerners were present during the time before 1800 in various guises. You'll see this in the readings as well, but they were mostly itinerant traders or advisors. That's traders with a D, or advisors. And they didn't represent any security threat. After 1800, one of the cusps of change was that they began to become a threat, and they began to occupy large amounts of territory rather than simply residing in trading entrepôts. You'll see, for example, in the readings that the Dutch, which had been not really occupying but residing in trading ports across present-day Indonesia, were forced by the British. If they didn't want to lose those entrepôts, they were told, here's what you've got to do. We want to keep the French out of this region. You've got to expand and control the whole country, the whole area, so that the French don't come in. And this is one of the British-French rivalry was also one of the origins of the idea that Thailand should remain independent. And Thailand was the one country in Southeast Asia, the one area that was not colonized. So after 1800, we began again to see this problem with increasing Western power coming in to pursue very large-scale profits and acquisition of territory. And this caused revolutionary attempts to resist that began as rebellions, but eventually, with the influence of especially of the Russians through the Communist International, the Comintern. Again, this is in readings later on. This mere rebellions turned towards something more systemic, to erase foreign influence through genuine revolution. As well, we've continued into the present day with another revolution of sorts, a revolution of economic relations between countries. And this is also one of the great dynamic forces of the change that has occurred over the past 200 years. And this high-speed economic development that we see, ironically, is still somewhat dependent on good relations with the West. That will come toward the end of the course. So go on to slide 17, the one that says East Asia, the greater changes. In Europe and America, as in Asia, there was mechanization and technological advancement. There was a shift from agriculture to manufacturing in Asia over the period covered by this course, expanded personal freedoms and increased equality between the sexes. However, at the same time, you'll see Buddhism in the West, for example, that's been imported, but the scale on which Western ideologies and religions were imported in the other direction, from west to east, from Europe and America to Asia, was astounding and much greater. And during the period of the 1920s, for example, when imperial 1900 to 1920 or so, when imperial influence in Asia was at its absolute height, there was more severe social upheaval than ever before, and that sort of lesson from history that when there's an awful lot of foreign influence, there's an awful lot of chaos, has not been lost on modern leaders of Asian countries, and this is one reason why there are regular attempts to try to control foreign influence, especially from the West, the alien culture. There have also been much stronger influences of early history in Asia on popular concepts of justice and one's place in the world, that is, a nation's place in the world, than in the West. Certainly a stronger sense of national injustice and a desire to restore past glories. And nationalism itself is a more recent development in Asia. So there have been greater changes at a more rapid pace in Asia, is basically what I'm saying. Go on to slide 18. We're almost done. So the academic goals we really went over before, but here they are for you again. It's important to try to grasp the changing influence of foreign ideas and culture, where foreigners were once the source of not only of all the grief of colonization, but were also potentially the source of ideas, Marxism, Christianity, that could lead to salvation for Asian nations. This has changed. Now there's a lot more critical examination of foreign influence. However, foreign economic and political ties to the West remain extremely important, and this is one of the great contradictions of the modern period. And so, go on to slide 19. I've really already covered this stuff about how it's important to remain employed. In remaining employed, it's important to be able to be useful to your organization, and it's a sad truth, but it is what it is. So that's why I want to make sure that you have a chance in this course to develop those critical skills of being able to absorb a lot of facts, be critical in how you absorb them and weigh them appropriately, and then be able to represent them in written form to the people with whom you work. That's all for this week. I thank you very much for your attention. I'll keep looking at D2L to make sure that I answer your questions as quickly as possible. Keep on reading, Enjoy yourselves. Make sure that you get enough sleep. Take your vitamins, please. Get proper meals into you as you pursue your studies, and use caffeine with appropriate caution. Thank you very much. Bye for now.